Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I'm the head coach at G.R.A.C.E Financial Coaching. And today we are talking to Karen Hackman. Karen is a financial coach who helps couples talk about money without the argument. In the early days of her marriage, Karen and her husband could not talk about money without fighting. I'm sure this sounds very familiar to some people. After doing some research and having an aha moment, Karen was able to change her own mindset about money. She and her husband started talking about their finances and budgeting in a positive way, and everything changed for the better. Karen became a financial coach shortly after, and she helps her clients get on the same financial page and to have open and honest conversations about money. Welcome, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell us about your we all know about the fighting, right? We all know about the arguments, the you're spending too much money on this, the no one said to spend money on that. When did we start giving your sister money or your brother money or all those arguments, right? What I want to know about is the research that you did and the aha moment that you had where it just kind of clicked and you started to change your own mindset, because that's not easy.
No. So what happened was I was just scrolling YouTube back in 2018, and I came across Dave Ramsey. And I know that you either love him or you hate him. And he was like, he just spoke to me, complete common sense. And I was like, why did no one tell me this before? Why did nobody say to me that you shouldn't be in debt? You should be saving an emergency fund. And then you can start investing. So it was kind of like then that my mind started to change. And then I tried to talk to my husband about it, but it wasn't going anywhere very fast. And then I kind of thought, right, come on, Karen, you're obviously approaching this in completely the wrong way. And so then I started doing some research and listening to podcasts and reading books. And there's not much out there on how to get on the same financial page as your spouse. People just seem to assume that it's going to be really easy. Well, hand on my heart, I can tell you that it took years, and I had to be very patient, and I had to change the way I spoke about money and when and where I was talking about money. My husband was very overwhelmed and reluctant to talk about money. He was brought up being told he's bad with money. And even when I think back to the days when we first got together, we were engaged and he had 3 credit cards maxed out. And so I paid those off. And then I just presumed, never presume anything. And I presumed he's like, oh, we'll be okay now. He'll have the same attitude towards the money as me. And then it just took me so long to realize that this isn't working. And I had to be very patient. And like one way that I learned, and it took me so long, Suzanne, I don't quite like to think I'm not that stupid, but it took me a long time. I am an early morning person, and I am awake with the birds, and my husband is a night owl, so he's not. So I would be awake about 6 a.m. in the morning, and I'd be like, I'd do my quiet time, I'd have my cup of tea, I'd have my breakfast, and then I'd look at the bank statements, and then I'd be like, I'd take him a cup of tea and go, right, what's this? What have you spent this on? Rah, 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 nag, nag, nag. And then, of course, he wasn't interested.
Right, at 7 a.m. That's really funny because I wrote down how, when, and where. So we've narrowed down when. You were obviously trying to talk to him about money at the wrong time for him. It was the right time for you, but the wrong time for him. This reminds me a lot of the love languages and knowing what the other person's love language is. So we know Karen's husband's love language is not 6 a.m. tea time talking about bank statements. So when did you shift to accommodate the way his brain works?
Yeah. So I had to wait, and he knows this now, so it's okay. I had to wait till he was in a good mood. So when he was singing, I'm like, he's in a good mood. So, I'd really like to do X, Y, and Z with the money. Can we sit down at the weekend and just look over the numbers? So he had that time to mentally prepare. Karen wants to talk about the money. Karen wants to look at the bank statement. And I had to learn that not to drag it out. It's going to be a 5-minute, 10-minute thing. I would prepare as many numbers as I could on that spreadsheet to say, look, this could work, this couldn't work. And it had to be short and sweet, because I couldn't prolong it because he would just get cross.
That's
And
so funny because I talk about something that I developed years ago called the 17-minute rule. And I developed it because I was coaching a couple. This was pre-COVID. It was in person. So the three of us sitting next to each other.
yeah,
And at the 17-minute mark for the first, I want to say 3 out of the first 4 weeks,
yeah,
the husband got up and left. That's
yeah,
how tense it got
yeah,
after 17 minutes. It
yeah.
was probably somewhere between 13 minutes and 23 minutes. And in my head, it just, as soon as we were about to reach the pre 20-minute mark,
Yeah,
he would
it's too
walk
much.
out. He would walk out
Yeah.
of our meetings. And so I created the 17-minute rule for couples that have never spoken about money before. And
Yeah,
it literally is to set a timer for 17 minutes and do not go over 17 minutes.
yeah,
And even
absolutely.
if it's going well, even if it's going well
Yeah.
at 18 minutes, stop anyway, take a break,
Mm,
go get a cup of coffee, go make lunch, and then come back and do another 17 because it can be really overwhelming when it's a topic
mm,
like this that we've never talked about.
yeah,
I consistently say we talk about sex, politics, and religion in this country more than we talk about money. But if we were talking about a problem in bed, it would be tense as well, right? It would be
yeah,
awkward. It would be
yeah.
it would be
Embarrassing.
embarrassing. It would be
Yeah.
shameful, possibly. It would be
Mm,
maybe there'd be some guilt depending on what we're talking about.
yeah.
So the 17-minute rule can be employed for pretty much every topic. So it sounds
Mm.
like you were inadvertently,
Yes,
we got to do
100%.
this in 10 minutes and then we got to stop.
Yeah, and then we had to, like, we'd go out for a coffee, or we'd go for a walk, or we'd go and see friends, just to have something to look forward to, So that, and then it took me a few months to realize. So it was like magic. I have like a Google Doc for my spreadsheet, and it's
Mhm.
super simple. You can get these amazing spreadsheets with bar charts and pie charts, and all the rest of all the bells and whistles. And this is like so super simple. It has to be really, really plain and just there. You can't have anything else distracting you just from the numbers, because that, again, he found totally overwhelming. So I created this spreadsheet, and then the magic was I shared with him the document, and I asked him, like sometimes life gets in the way, right? And so we narrowed the budget down to like 5-10 minutes, and I'd say,
Mm.
look, can you just put in these numbers for me? And it was like, wow. It was like all of a sudden he could see, and he had ownership of this budget, and all of a sudden he was like selling stuff that I knew he didn't really want to get rid of, like his motorbike, because he wanted to crush that debt, you
Karen, you
know?
didn't tell me this before. We have motorcycles. You're breaking my heart right now.
I know. The debt, but he knew that you get rid of the debt, then he could
Yeah.
save up and he could buy another one. And it was painful for him, and I could see that. And I just had to go, wow, look at these numbers. Look how we're smashing that debt. Well done to us, because we would never have done this a few years ago. And I tried to say it. I am by trade a primary school teacher. And so I teach 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. So I have to really try my hardest not to sound like a teacher and go, well done, that's great, without sounding, just like a teacher, I guess.
Right.
So
My mother was a school teacher, and she used to say, and this still rings true, if you want to learn about something, read the children's book. Because I hate to say it, but it dumbs it down. I remember being in England, actually,
yeah,
and we were in some cathedral somewhere, and they had a whole, timeline of all the kings and the Church of England and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wait, my brother and I are standing there. We're like, who, hold on, king, whose dad was this? And we couldn't, we just literally couldn't put 2 and 2 together. My mother walked over to the gift shop, took the children's book, and we stood there in front of the timeline of kings, and we figured out who was who,
yeah,
because the children's book simplifies it. And
yeah,
when you take a concept like money and adults and you simplify it, look what happens.
yeah. And it's things that we didn't know before. And if nobody tells you, how are you supposed to know? And so, and it was just from my research and I read a book or I listen to a podcast, and if I could just get one nugget of advice, take one nugget, I would just grab hold of that,
Oh,
And
great.
then so so there was a space between like 2018 and 2021 where I was kind of, see, it didn't happen overnight, right? I had to learn. And then Wayne said to me, okay, let's do this. And the hope that I had in me just overflowing. Oh my goodness, we're on the same financial page. I just thought, I can't be the only person struggling in their marriage to talk about money. So hence Money in Marriage was born. So yeah, it's been really good. I love it. I love working with newlyweds and sharing my top tips. And I love working with couples that have been married for over 10, 15 years, and they've just, never ever talked about money. Same as us, really.
Right. Yeah. It's, I don't want to say it's easier. Well, it is easier, right? Because if we're working with newlyweds, we're getting to them sooner, earlier. We're not having to break as many bad habits or bad habits that have been in our lives for 20 years, 25 years. What do you think has been the hardest part about coaching the couples who have been married for 10, 15, 20, 25 years?
Do you know, I haven't found, it's just been so encouraging, and I come away and I'm just so excited. And my daughter said to me the other day, she goes, what was it like? And I said, it was really good fun. And we talked about this, and this. And she said, how can it be fun, Mummy, talking about money? And I'm like, yes, it's really good fun. And I haven't had any struggles because the couples have been so open to talking about it. They're like, okay, we understand now that we can't go on like this. We've got to pay for the kids' university fees. We've got to, start talking about this because the children are now 14, 15, and it's going to come sooner than we realize. And it's been just great just to help them just see their budgets, to look at all the numbers on the same page, to open that communication and to ask questions that they've never thought of before. And then we end up talking about wills and, savings for the children. And then there's one couple that had been married for 13 years, didn't have an emergency fund. And they were like, wow, that's such a good idea. So they started saving for that, and it's just been wonderful to see these couples that were on two separate financial pages. And because you come from different backgrounds, right? You come from two different households. And just because, you're different doesn't mean that one's right and one's wrong. You just got to create a new path for both of you together. And it's just really encouraging. And I come away from those meetings just buzzing, absolutely buzzing. And so thankfully, I haven't had any situations yet that have been something that I can't handle or that have been kind of a negative.
Mm-hmm. I had a couple one time where, and I just told this story yesterday. I love how it's the great magnet, right? I had a couple and they had been married for, it was over 10 years, let's say 12, 13. I don't think it was 15 yet. And they came to me by referral from a financial advisor who said, this couple needs help. We can't do anything with their retirement right now until we get this debt knocked off.
Yeah.
The first 2 months, typically during my coaching, we meet every other week, possibly every week for the first month to get that budget really nailed down. This is what the husband looked like for the first 2 months.
Oh,
completely leaned back, the arms crossed. If the wife was like this at the computer, he was 40 feet behind her, it looked like. Yeah. And he didn't say a word to me for 2 months.
Wow.
2 months.
Do you think he was just watching and checking you out?
I think there was a little bit of, and I don't come across this all the time, so I'm absolutely not bashing men, but there was a little bit of what does this chick know about money type thing that was probably just from where he geographically was and his upbringing. But month 3, something clicked. And so I want to encourage everybody who's not on the same page with their spouse that, like Karen said, it didn't happen overnight, right? And this guy, I don't know what I said, right? I wish I could go back to him and say, hey, do you remember what I said that the light bulb went off on your head? But it's been years now. They paid off $40,000 in debt in 1 year.
Amazing.
And they had never spoken about money. They, I want to say they had 10 credit cards between the two of them. Neither knew what card the other one had.
Yeah. Same when we were married. The first few years, no clue.
Crazy. And so at the end of that year, I looked at them, and it just happened to be a calendar year. We happened to start in January and end in December. Sometimes that works out that way. And I looked at them and I said, you guys are done with your coaching program. And, are you going to go back to that financial advisor next month and get that retirement ready? And the husband looked at me and goes, nope, I've done the calculations. We've got 4 to 6 months left. We are destroying this debt. And then we are going to go full force into retirement. I almost fell out of my chair because if you had seen where he had came from 12 months ago. So it's possible. It's possible working with really any financial coach, right? We've all worked. Some people work with singles only, but the majority of us work with singles and couples, and those of us who are married or who have been married, or we know the struggles. And so, before we keep going with that, though, because we could just talk about this for another hour, I have to ask our question, Karen, which is, before you became a financial coach, and even after, what do you think the dumbest thing you've ever done with money is?
Well, just not talk about it. Just not talk about it. When we were having before we were married, we had marriage prep classes, we had marriage mentors, and we had a financial advisor, and no one ever told us you got to have a budget. No one. And I'm like, that was just so many wasted years. So just not talking about it was like stupid.
Yeah.
How can you not have talked about money? And I knew that he had some debt. And as I said, I paid off those 3 credit cards, and I just assumed that everything would be okay. I never assume anything. I've learned that lesson. So just don't assume, and just no budgeting. Just just start a budget and just see those figures, because that's just a real game changer for us. And, not having sinking funds or an emergency fund. Those sinking funds have been a game changer for us. And it's complete common sense, isn't it, when you think about it? But unless, I guess, someone tells you, you're not gonna know,
right?
And they've just been just amazing for us. So I really am I highly recommend sinking funds. So yes, not talking about money was not my best move.
So knowing what you know now, obviously, and you guys are now, I don't want to say completely on the same page. No couple's ever 100% on the same page, right? He might be looking at a second motorcycle and you don't even know that he's looking at it, right? But as long as it doesn't go out and buy it, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think, if you look back, what would you say during the marriage prep classes? Like, not everybody has those, what do you think? Was there anything that sticks out in your mind now? Like, oh, this would have been the good time to talk about it. Was it during the marriage prep? Was it with the financial advisor? Because when you're that young, a lot of times you don't have money to put into a retirement account except for your 401k.
Yeah. And he was encouraging us to invest, and we did. But in hindsight, we had debt, we had no savings, and he was encouraging us. So those, basic questions in the marriage prep classes, I think, I don't even think there was like a week on let's talk about money, and my husband was a youth worker and I was a new teacher. We had no money. It was not like we were independently wealthy, We had no money. We were struggling to pay the mortgage. And why didn't somebody say, why didn't our parents say? And, the only real advice I got from my dad was don't leave yourself short. This isn't too bad, but could have gone a lot further.
Yeah, you could take that and extract out, don't spend everything that you're bringing in. But even then, what does that mean? Does that mean put 20% away? Does that mean put 10% away? My parents were similar in the sense that they were very good financially, but nobody ever sat me down and said, you need to set up your paycheck so that 20% is going into a savings account and you never see it. Or I was actually investing too much when I first started working out of college. I think I was investing 18% into my 401k.
Yeah.
And learned very quickly I wasn't going to be able to pay rent investing 18%. But no one ever sat me down and said, hey, the average is back then, 2 to 4%. Now it's more like 3 to 6%. And hey, there's a match here. What the heck is a match? So my parents had very good financial tendencies and doled out good advice. But like you said, nobody ever sat me down and said, here's the dollar amount. I mean, when I say always leave yourself something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am the saver and I am the nerd in the like kind of the money terms. And my husband is obviously the spender. But we balance each other out now, but only because we have this open and honest we communicate open and honestly. And we have to have no secrets because someone will find out in the end and it won't go well.
What did you guys do? Did you end up, because if you said everything was separate. So did you have completely separate checking accounts, completely separate savings, completely separate credit cards? Did you guys end up combining anything?
So we had separate credit cards, and then we had a joint bank account, and all our money went into the joint bank account, and we paid all the bills and everything came out of that. And then we had like this will make you laugh. We had 2 little like spending accounts, like for fun money.
Fun money accounts,
We have like £50 a month would go into our fund money. And so if I wanted to go to the spa day, I could, or if he wanted to spend it on a gadget, he could, and that was fine. And then after a few months, I realized that there was £75 coming out of our joint account quite frequently. And I was like, what's this £75? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, it's from the bank. You better call him up and see what's happening. Anyway, it was because he was going overdrawn on his fund money account. They were charging us £75 a month for overdraft fees.
£75. I mean, that's like $100.
Yeah.
At the time.
And I was like, okay, because he was always told he was so bad with money. He didn't want to look at bank accounts. He doesn't want to look. He just ignores them. So I was like, right, let's knock that on the head then, because that's obviously not working. So yeah. So then we still have a joint bank account that we both monitor closely now. And even every day he has a text message that tells him how much is in the account. I watch it on the app. And just, we do have different credit cards, obviously paid in full every month. And we tell it when we have our budget meeting, we say like, what's on it? Let's pay that off. And what have you spent on it type thing? Because currently we do live in Kenya. And even though we have an emergency fund, if God forbid anything happened at home and we needed to book a flight, the credit card's going to be the quickest way to book that flight. Then we can just obviously pay it off with the emergency fund. But
absolutely. Yeah, I'm not, Dave Ramsey is not a big credit card, that's the understatement of the year. Dave Ramsey hates credit cards. But in certain situations with certain people, I think they're totally appropriate. It's a little bit when we get a little too obsessed with like the points and stuff like that. That really, if you're going to do that, that needs to be a hobby. Like that needs to be like something you're paying attention to. I have a friend like this. I've talked about him before. He that is literally a hobby for him. That is not a hobby for me. No. If you want to be able to track that stuff and follow that stuff, and he will literally, know what American Express is doing, how many points he's going to get for going to Home Depot this month, how many points he's going to get if he uses Amazon and uses the Amex this month, how many points he's going to get if they're teamed up with Enterprise this month. And he will literally base his spending around that.
Goodness.
If you don't have the interest in doing that, please don't pretend to have the interest in doing it, because you're just going to end up with a credit card that's not making you points or miles or whatever.
100%. Yeah. And even like back in the day when, so Wayne had an Amex card and the interest rate on that is just like super scary. And he's like, I'm doing it for the points. And I just laughed and went, the amount of interest that you are paying compared to the amount of points you're getting, it's just totally not worth it. Yeah. So you have to be really passionate about that. No, we're not really integrated with the points, because I just don't think for us it's not worth it.
Right. And if we were paying attention, we were traveling a lot more before COVID. Maybe that would have made sense for us, but it didn't. The card that we had that we put all of our travel stuff on at the time gave us access to 90% of the lounges in the airport. And honestly, that was like ideal, right? Because it was something we didn't have to think about, something we didn't have to focus on, but it was there when we needed it. I'm not completely opposed to credit cards by any stretch of the imagination. I do have a couple clients who shouldn't have them. So what happens when you have a couple and you can tell that, not only is one the spender and one the saver? I'll use myself and my husband as an example. We're both spenders.
Yeah.
We're both spenders. Wow. So there's a lot of auto transfer savings going on, because if I didn't have that stuff set up, I am a spender nerd and he is a spender free spirit.
Wow.
But we're both spenders.
Wow.
So what would you do if you had, or have you had someone, a coaching client where you were like, okay, not only is this person a spender, there might be a spending problem?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, for me, they have to see the numbers and they have to work it out themselves. I can tell them till I'm blue in the face, but sometimes they're just not listening. But as soon as they see those numbers on that super simple spreadsheet, I think, it might take a few months, it might take a bit longer, but they will see it. The penny will drop one day and they will see it, and they will know, right, we've got to rein this in, especially if we talk about goals or, children going to university or a dream holiday that they want to take. Right, how are we going to do that? What are you going to do? And we also talk about the interest that you're paying every month on those credit cards. And it's kind of like a Do you want to be paying the banks $100 a month, for interest? Can you imagine how much you would be saving if you didn't have to pay those banks that money?
Yeah.
So I think it's a mental mind shift. And as I said, if I told, you can gently, I think it's drip feeding, isn't it, for my couples? And once they open their eyes and they can see it for themselves, it's a complete game changer. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. It is you have to, as coaches, what we want to do is we want to inspire people to
Mm,
have those money mindset shifts
yeah.
themselves. We can't have it for them, right?
No,
Absolutely.
no. Yeah.
So Karen, tell us what's the next in your business for you right now?
Oh, well, I'm just super excited. I'm going to go on a break for a few weeks for flying back to the UK to spend some time with family and friends. So that's great. And then I will kick back off in September. I love my coaching program. It's 5 weeks for couples, get on the same financial page as your spouse. And for those couples where maybe one spouse is totally overwhelmed, we meet like every other week. But I just love it because I get couples on the same financial page and they budget together and they talk about money and they dream big and they make plans to how they're going to reach those goals to go on that luxury vacation. I just get so excited and I just love talking to couples. So that's my summer break and just kick back off in September. So
Awesome.
so also just keep promoting Money and Marriage and my super simple spreadsheet and my coaching program.
Awesome, Karen. Great. Well, have a wonderful vacation.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining us today. And I hope everyone will join us next time on another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.